is the way. This is the way.
As future stories unfold and more Legends material find its way into canon, let's dive back into the lore, legends, and canon material that make up the history of the Mandalorians. Before we get into it, if you're a fan of our videos, please like our content and subscribe to the channel. It really does help us out and gives us the opportunity to create more content for you. Chapter 4: The Fall of the Mandalorians. Much of the history and canon for the Mandalorians is yet to be explored, but we see the pieces begin to fit together as shows like the Clone Wars, Rebels, and The Mandalorian give us bits of the canonical history. Now in canon, the armorer states that the Mandalorians have existed for 10,000 years.
All this talk of the Empire, and they lasted less than 30 years. Mandalorians have existed 10,000.
The Mandalorians originated around 9,991 BBY, and, as in Legends, the Mandalorians' way of life revolved around honor and war, with various war clans united around a central leader called the Mandalore. Throughout the history, they came into conflict with the Jedi and the Galactic Republic, and the armor recalls Mandalore the Great, who had to lead the Mandalorians during these great wars. Despite their differences, their opposing cultural beliefs, there was once a Mandalorian Jedi. The Mandalorian was Tar Vizsla, who was inducted into the Jedi Order as a child, and later created the Darksaber around 1058 BBY. The Darksaber was a wholly unique type of lightsaber. Like the Mandalorian Jedi himself, it brought together conflicting elements with both cultures. With a Force-sensitive kyber crystal that produces an energy blade that can cut through most anything, and an indestructible hilt made out of Beskar, the Mandalorian's most prized metal, used for ancestral armor, a metal so strong it can deflect a lightsaber. With these sacred items from both the Jedi and the Mandalorians, he created the Darksaber, and later on Tar Vizsla founded House Vizsla and claimed the position of Mandalore, making the Darksaber a symbol of leadership for his house and the people of Mandalore. After his death, the Darksaber was kept in the Jedi Temple, but members of his house raided the Jedi Temple during the fall of the Old Republic and stole back the weapon, and with it, House Vizsla was able to unite the clans of Mandalore against the Jedi. Unfortunately, this war led to the destruction of Mandalore, which turned the planet's surface into a lifeless white desert. This is when the pacifist movement began, led by young Duchess Satine Kryze of House Kryze, and the new Mandalorians turned their back on the old ways. A Mandalorian civil war broke out between the new Mandalorians and the traditionalists. During the civil war, the Jedi became involved and protected Satine against bounty hunters who were hired to kill her, and during this time, she met a young Jedi Padawan named Obi-Wan Kenobi, and both the Duchess and the Jedi grew fond of each other. Eventually, the civil war ended and the traditionalists were defeated by the new Mandalorians, who exiled the traditionalists to Mandalore's moon of Concordia. One faction of these traditionalists became Death Watch, and many other old Mandalorians scattered throughout the galaxy and became mercenaries. During the Clone Wars, those who followed the old ways would align themselves with both the Separatists and the Republic. One Mandalorian bounty hunter named Jango Fett was hired by Darth Tyrannus to become the clone template for the Republic, and his clones would be trained by Mandalorian protectors. Death Watch, led by Pre Vizsla, the descendant of Tar Vizsla, who carried his ancestral Darksaber, would side with the Separatists in an effort to reclaim Mandalore from the pacifist Mandalorians. Later, Death Watch would join Maul and his criminal organization known as the Shadow Collective, and they brought down the new Mandalorians' control of Mandalore. At some point during this period, a young boy named Din Djarin would be rescued by Mandalorians wearing the symbol of Death Watch on their armor, and he would become a foundling in a sect of Mandalorians known as the Children of the Watch, who followed the Way of the Mandalore. The Way of the Mandalore, also known as Way of the Mandalore, was a religion followed by Orthodox Mandalorians. It involved protecting fellow Mandalorians and taking in foundlings, but also wearing a helmet at all times. The Children of the Watch were the Mandalorian group described by Bo-Katan Kryze as a cult, who followed the Way and sought to re-establish the religion, which had since fallen out of mainstream Mandalorian society and became considered ancient by the time of the New Republic era. As Death Watch and the criminal syndicate known as Shadow Collective worked together, Pre Vizsla challenged Maul to a duel and was killed by the once Sith Lord, who now claimed the Darksaber as his own, making him the leader of the Mandalorians, which split the Mandalorians and led to another Mandalorian civil war, with those loyal to Maul and those who resisted, such as Bo-Katan Kryze, Duchess Satine's sister, who was supported by the Republic. Wanting revenge against Obi-Wan Kenobi, Maul would lead him to Mandalore and kill Duchess Satine in front of him with the Darksaber. Seeing his old apprentice grow in power and strength, Darth Sidious came to Mandalore to put down the potential threat. Maul was defeated and his brother Savage Opress was killed, and while Sidious could have claimed the Darksaber, the ancient weapon was was left behind were covered by Mandalorians loyal to Maul and returned to him later. The Siege of Mandalore saw Bo-Katan, Ahsoka, and the Republic fight against Maul and his followers, leading to the Republic winning the Civil War and capturing Maul. Then, after Order 66, Maul managed to escape once again, and the Republic became the Galactic Empire. After the rise of the Empire, Bo-Katan Kryze was made Regent of Mandalore, but she refused to follow the Emperor and was replaced by Gar Saxon, who was previously a Mandalorian loyal to Maul. Saxon was made Viceroy over Mandalore. During this time in Rebels, Sabine Wren finds the Darksaber on Dathomir, where Maul kept it, and gives it to the Jedi Canon, who eventually trained Sabine to use the weapon. Mandalore, like many planets, was oppressed under the Empire, and the Mandalorian resistance rose up and allied themselves with the Alliance to restore the Republic, better known as the Rebel Alliance. Sabine eventually fights the Viceroy Gar Saxon and rightfully earns the Darksaber in battle. Sabine Wren's mother Ursa Wren told her that anyone can hold the Darksaber, the trick is keeping it along with your head. Sabine chooses to give the ancient weapon and symbol of leadership to Bo-Katan Kryze to unite the clans against the Empire. We know from the Mandalorian that the Darksaber can only be won in battle, and if not rightfully won, it will bring a curse down on all of Mandalore.
Bo-Katan is a cautionary tale. She once laid claim to rule Mandalore based purely on blood and the sword you now possess. But it was gifted to her and not won by creed.
Even though Sabine Wren knew this, she still decided to give the Darksaber to Bo-Katan. Bo-Katan accepts the Darksaber and assumes the position of Mandalore. Her reign as the leader of Mandalore would be short as the Empire began the Great Purge of Mandalore. Knowing that the Mandalorians would remain a threat and hard to control, they killed millions of Mandalorians during the Night of 1,000 Tears. During the Purge, Bo-Katan managed to escape from Mandalore but lost the Darksaber. Eventually it would be found by Moff Gideon. With Mandalore decimated, few Mandalorians survived, and the Children of the Watch survived on the moon of Concordia. Their tribe decided to go into hiding and would eventually find a home on Navarro, living underground and enforcing a rule that only one Mandalorian could leave the covert at one time. The tribe concentrated on building up their ranks through foundlings, adopting children and instructing them in the way of the Mandalore. After the fall of the Empire, Din Djarin takes a certain bounty and finds Grogu, leading to the events seen in The Mandalorian. He eventually fights off Moff Gideon and rightfully wins the Darksaber, and defends that right later against another descendant of Tar Vizsla, Paz Vizsla. Din Djarin ends up breaking the creed by removing his helmet, and the armor tells him that he is no longer a Mandalorian. But Din finds out he can atone by finding the living waters under the mines of Mandalore. This brings us to the present time frame in The Mandalorian Season 3, and it will certainly bring us more insight into the history of the Mandalorians in canon. Looking forward, we could see a lot of Legends material develop that could fit into this time frame. In Legends, in the year 29 ABY, a battle was fought on Mandalore between the Yuuzhan Vong and the Mandalorians. The Mandalorian leader, Boba Fett, initially aligned with the Yuuzhan Vong to spare the planet from invasion, but Fett would pass information to the New Republic. The Yuuzhan Vong eventually found out and led an assault on Mandalore. The Mandalorians fought against thousands of Yuuzhan Vong warriors, and with heavy casualties, the Mandalorians were able to drive the Yuuzhan Vong off of their world. Could this story be developed in The Mandalorian? Could we be seeing the Yuuzhan Vong soon, or even the Grisk? This would give us a new threat in the galaxy and give Din Djarin and the Mandalorians a reason to band together, either in Season 3 or beyond. Whatever the future might hold, the rich history and lore, legends, and canon gives us a fascinating culture to explore in the Star Wars universe, one that is worth exploring more. So thank you for taking this journey into the lore, legends, and canon with me that make up the history of The Mandalorian. I hope you're able to gain some new insights from this series, and it helps you enjoy The Mandalorian Season 3 even more. So thanks for joining me today on Fatherly Fandom, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And from our families to yours, have a good one, and may the Force be with you.